If you ever catch me taking everything out of my pantry, cleaning out my closet, or rooting through the bins in my storage room, chances are it's because I've been watching Jen Martin's Instagram feed, or better yet, interviewing her for this podcast. This time around, since recording 2 weeks ago, I've already reorganized my pantry, organized a bunch of matching spice jars, and miraculously fit all of my herbs and spices in one drawer that actually closes. And I've even started going through my bathroom drawers and getting rid of some of the things I feel compelled to keep because I don't want to be wasteful, but will never actually use them. Goodbye, free samples of setting spray. I probably wouldn't use you even if I knew how. I'm Whitney Archibald, and this is the Family Lab, where we investigate all things parenting and home management. Today, we're talking to the one and only Jen Martin, a real life friend of mine and the founder of a Utah based organizing company called Reset Your Nest. I wanted to do an episode about the big picture, strategic level of organizing, and I thought of Jen because she's so purposeful about organizing. She's not just clearing stuff out and giving people a blank slate to fill up again with junk. She thinks about systems and goals and what actual real life looks like. Today, we're going to talk about how to organize our homes in a way that lines up with our goals, values, and routines, how to organize our kitchens by zones, and how to create systems for our comings and goings along other organizing tips. I started our conversation by asking Jen how she developed this talent of organizing in the first place.
I think we all have different seasons and different phases. I've always been very organized and had minimal amounts of things that are easy to manage and color coded things in closets because I liked the way that felt and was bringing calm. But a really big turning point for me was when I started Reset Your Nest and I was working 60, 70 hours a week. And I had 4 children, ages, I think my youngest was 3 at the time. And all of a sudden, I didn't need my home just to kind of run. I needed it to run almost without me because I just had no time to give to my home. I still needed to care for my children. They still needed to be fed. The laundry still needed to be done. And so really figuring out systems, just streamlining things even more beyond the like perfect bins and having things be not cluttered. I needed like real systems that function.
For sure. And yeah, I actually like that we're discussing this together because I'm naturally like organized in my ideas, but not my stuff, maybe. My house isn't always very neat and tidy and definitely not color coded and beautiful like yours is. But I like having that dynamic because I can give both perspectives on that too. So
Well, and I think I learned too that I mean I will always, it's my passion, my career, like what I do for others is create systems that are also beautiful and, have the right bins. But I think there was this process of learning that the bins and the labels are not always enough. You need to have, just true systems so you can, and automations, things that run more on their own beyond
that's
bins. So
that's really cool. One thing I love about you is that your systems aren't focused only on the logistics. The logistics are beautiful and wonderful, but they are always in service of higher purposes and higher goals. So I would love to kind of talk about our home systems in that framework of thinking strategy first, then tactics, then logistics. So when you're organizing somebody's home, how do you get to that actual why? Like, why are we doing this? Why are you organizing your home in the first place?
I mean, when we think about why, we think about like what is our desired outcome? What is the goal we hope to accomplish? But I think especially with organizing with systems, something that helps me, I don't typically like to focus on the negative, but I think really identifying the pain points can help you remember your why and come up with a strategy. So is it that when your kids come home from school, there are shoes on the floor and backpacks on the floor and school papers? Or is it that you have this ever growing pile of mail growing, or you can never find your keys, or whatever the pain points are? Or maybe you're
Right.
making your morning cup of tea or whatever it is, and you're walking back and forth from the sink to the tea kettle, and then you need to go over here to get your mugs, and then you need to go over here to get your tea packet, whatever it is. What is your pain point? So identifying your pain point can really help you figure out your why. I think it's easy to say, well, I want to save time. I want to live a less cluttered life. But dialing in those pain points can help you get a little more clear on the problem you're trying to solve.
I like that because sometimes we don't even realize that something is a value we have unless we realize that it's bothering us.
And maybe it's not a pain point that I even recognize, but just an inefficiency. Where am I taking just even an extra minute or moments out of my day to do something that could be minimized by a system that's easier for either me to follow or someone in my family?
Well, and the cool thing about these organizations that we're running are family organizations, as opposed to like if we're running a business, which we both are doing that also, is that the answer to the why always ultimately goes back to the same thing, which is connection. Like whether you're serving your family by running the system, or if efficiency is your strategy, then it goes back to being able to have more time with your family because you're making the system efficient. It's just kind of a cool, the nature of our little corporations that we're running, that it is all about connection and relationships in the end. And so anytime we're working on that strategy, we can always bring it back to that.
Yeah, time is our most limited commodity. And so, where are you spending your time? And the more efficient, the more systems you have running in your home opens up space for the things that really matter. And like you said, the connection and yeah, the things that
Awesome.
are the reason behind all the other things that we do. So,
Right, right. Okay, so that said, like we're all different personalities. We come from different levels of organization, like the two of us, and there's endless tactics that we can take, like the actual systems themselves being the tactics. Um, there's not one right way to do laundry. There's not one right way to organize your kitchen. There's not one right way to uh, organize your photos, or keep your family memories. So I would love to kind of narrow it down and just talk about one system from this perspective, thinking first at that strategic level. So kind of before we started recording, we decided that kitchen would be great.
kitchen definitely is. And that's probably the most common space that we come in and organize.
Yeah.
And when we're moving people in, that's the number one priority. That's what we always do day one. So yes, it's really the heart of the home. And there's so much involved and there's so many variables. Like how big is our household? How do we eat? Are we even cooking or are we baking? Yeah, are we making lunches? And then every kitchen is so different too. I mean, some kitchens are massive and have a double island and a fridge that's bigger than my fridge freezer combined. It's just everything is so different. So I think something that's universal and can be applied to any space is before even thinking about the system, I think having a real honest conversation with yourself about how big is your space and like what will actually fit.
Hmm.
Because no matter what system you create, it is exponentially harder to maintain a system if you have too many things that you are trying to fit into a space that it just doesn't fit in. So I think being really honest, and if you love all the gadgets and all the things and need all the things, maybe coming up with another closet or another place that you can put items that are used less often. It might not be that convenient, but just really decluttering your kitchen so that you can then really start to think about zones would be my first suggestion.
Well, and do you have a trouble with people kind of designing a system aspirationally that maybe doesn't actually fit how they really live?
Yes.
Also.
So I'm so glad you brought that up. I was thinking about that as I was thinking about our conversation today. Um, Always like being honest about who you are today and what your life looks like today. I mean, this is a great example when you're going through your closet. Are you a stay-at-home mom and you have lots of work and pantsuits, from your days when you were working in the office?
Uh-huh.
So just thinking about, yeah, I mean, I had a zoodler for years, and I actually really like zoodles. You know what those are?
Huh? Zucchini noodles, yeah.
Yeah, it was great. Right now in my life, like I'm not going to be doing that, and
You're not
so
zoodling?
I'm not doodling. I wish I could doodle. So yeah, I think we all have maybe an aspirational way of either having, these lavish family dinners together, or eating super healthy and juicing all the time, or whatever it is. But um, lots of times those come with, space, um, things that take up space. So yeah, I think being really realistic about what is our lifestyle now. It doesn't mean you can't have those things in the future. It doesn't mean you can't even have those things, but let's make space for the way we're living now. What are the ages our kids are at now? Maybe, and I'm sure most people don't do this. Most people don't even have fancy china these days, but as just for sake of example, if you have young kids, let's have a kid drawer with all the kid dishes that they can easily put away from the dishwasher and that can fall and get banged up. And maybe the china goes somewhere else for now, and we're not filling up our space with things that are not practical for our stage of life. So
Right. So, okay, so I'm going to get personal here. So what is your kitchen strategy?
I love my morning drinks. I love chamomile at night, and I have like this warm chocolatey drink in the morning. So, and I make smoothies. So I have a little spot, a cabinet. So I have my drink zone, but everything's there. The tea kettle, the mugs, the tea bags, my collagen, like all the things are right there. So I literally walk there, I turn on the tea kettle, I prepare my drink, I just stand right there. And so I think about, and I'm actually looking at my kitchen. So if I keep looking up, I'm like thinking about the zones. In most kitchens typically will have, or how we like to map out kitchens is having a place where the majority of the food prep is. I love spice drawers. I love being able to open a drawer and just see all my spices there. I really enjoy cooking for my family, and so having that be an easy thing to just pull out all the spices that I need for dinner is a high priority thing for me. So I'm sacrificing one of my very few drawers, top drawers, just to hold spices, but that's something that I've chosen. Having cooking tools and cutting tools all together. So I just open one drawer and I grab the tools I need. Um, so a food prep zone, food storage zone. So I like to keep all of the things for lunch making. We have a snack drawer by the food storage zone so that if my kids are making lunch, the Ziploc bags, the prepackaged snacks, the paper bags, and then also Tupperware is all in that same area. So if we're ever storing food, anything, any wraps, foils, Ziploc bags, Tupperware, it's all in one zone together, even though it's in a few different drawers. And then always like to keep like dishes and cutlery. I don't even know what we call that zone.
Dishware. Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
Yeah, glasses, glassware close to the dishwasher. So that's an easy zone. Usually that's the easiest one to figure out when you walk into a home. And then the zones surrounding the stove are typically tools that you're using when you're at the stove, cookware, and I like to have spices close to the stove, but it doesn't always work out that way. Those really are the main ones. And then figuring out where bakeware and small appliances go, they usually kind of fall into place. So those are the main zones. I would say food prep, food storage, which includes like lunch making, drink zone, and then dishes are probably the primary ones.
Awesome. I love that. I love thinking about it in zones. And I feel like that's really a tactical level too, like where you think about, okay, what is actually happening? Like I feel like you could even sit down and make a list of what do I actually do when I go in my kitchen, or just even if it's hard to think of that, just keep track of it during your day. Like when do I go in my kitchen? What am I doing when I'm there? That could be a way to realize, like, oh, okay, I'm doing this in lots of different areas. Maybe I should be doing it in one area. But yeah, I just think that evaluation, like what am I actually using this space for? And is there something I want to be using it for, or is there something I'm using it for that I shouldn't be? Um, One example might be in my kitchen right now, we are kind of out of the sit at the table and draw stage with my kids. Like they're not drawing, they're not painting, they're not crafting. And I have a whole cabinet in my kitchen dedicated to crafts that is a mess because nobody ever pays attention to it. Nobody cares. And it's just, we just toss stuff in there, and it it has occurred to me to organize it, but it hasn't occurred to me that it just shouldn't be there in the first place because nobody's using it.
Yeah, I think something we forget, and this is something I'm learning too, because I do believe that once you have a good system, the maintenance is so easy. You really don't have to think about it. You shouldn't have to think about it. It takes minimal effort. But there's also so much value in reevaluating those systems periodically. I was just thinking when we moved into this house, I think my 9-year-old would have been 2. And so we gave her a
Very
little
different.
kid drawer, and I taught her like, okay, these are your dishes, and you get to unload the dishwasher and put the dishes here. And that drawer still exists, and it's great, it's fine, but I don't I don't know if that needs to be in the bottom drawer anymore, or do we even need the plastic dishes? Are they getting used? So even though my house is organized and it runs very efficiently, or my kitchen does, um, it's a great to just take a step back no matter how organized you are and just really think like, does this match again my lifestyle right now, and are there any ways that the system could be improved? So
Right. Well, and okay, so going back to, I like that example of your daughter because I think that comes back to the strategies behind your kitchen. So, one strategy could just be like, I'm going to cook delicious, nutritious meals in this space. That's a strategic level reason for using your kitchen. But another strategy could be, I want this kitchen to function as a classroom to teach my kids how to work and care for their families and to teach them how to prepare meals. You're going to organize your kitchen a little differently if you're planning to have kids in there cooking with you than if you're just doing it yourself. Or, like you said, helping empty the dishwasher. Well, you're going to put your dishes in different places if your preschoolers are going to be helping with the dishes. And you're going to need to have some stools there, and you're going to need to have, just different things in place. So, yeah, again, with the stages in your life and what you're doing, that can influence how you organize your whole kitchen.
yeah, I love that. And I love thinking, yeah, those big picture strategies. Because I think, I mean, like you said, sometimes we all have the same strategy. It's like, well, I want it to run more efficiently, but getting a little more specific as far as what will add value to your family and help you, yeah, help everyone be successful.
Right. And it also changes seasonally. So you can have different strategies for different seasons. Like summer, for example, like is going to have a very different strategy than during the school year. So let's kind of explore that a little bit. Like what would you say, how would you say the strategy shifts in the summertime?
I mean, for me
Yeah.
personally, it's it's very much again like my closet. I mean, we have small appliances that we use in the summer, so we swap out small appliances. We have a slushy machine and a Ninja Creamy. I don't know if you have
Hmm.
one of those or the best.
I should get
Um,
one, but I have like a big old ice cream
Ice
machine.
cream for
Yeah.
both ends. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are different small appliances we're using, so we actually move them because I have a smaller
Ooh, I
kitchen
like
at
that.
my basement, and we rotate them through instead of our hot chocolate machine that we use, in the winter.
Ah,
So
yeah.
I mean, that's more tactical, but as far as strategy, I mean, I feel like my kitchen generally maintains the same layout for sure. Um, but I do make it, I mean, instead of thinking of lunches that my kids are going to be taking to school, it's more just communicating with my kids and setting expectations for the summer of, what do you want for lunches? How are you? My kids really prepare most of their breakfasts and lunches themselves, and then I'll have them help me with dinner. So we definitely stock the kitchen a little bit differently in the
Yeah,
summer.
for sure.
and then just make sure that they
And more bountifully. Like, there's so much food,
and they
so
never
much
stop
food that you
eating.
need in the summer.
But yeah, I think it's more just communication of and just making sure that everyone is on the same page, even though really the general layout hasn't changed that much over the years. I think it's just continually reminding and training family members on what the system is so that it can be maintained by the whole household, not just me.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it is making sure that at every level that our kids are on board, our spouses are on board, any member of the family understands both that big picture, down to the systems, and then that logistical level of how to maintain those systems and what part they play in it. So I think like starting like maybe the big strategy, like overarching strategy is just like we want to have family meals together. Like, and we want a comfortable place to have delicious family meals together. That's the overall strategy. Um, Even communicating that to your kids, like how important it is that we get to gather and enjoy good food together. Sometimes we don't say that, you know. Sometimes we forget to tell our kids the why, and it's all about scrape your dish and put it in the dishwasher this way. It can be a battle to, if you're just focusing on the logistics and the things that they're supposed to do. If you never give them like, here's what I want, here's what I envision for our family, is that we eat together and then we clean up together, and it's this time to be unified and enjoy this food together and talk about our day. Like if we give them that vision of what it could be, then maybe they're going to be less annoyed when you're asking them to empty the dishwasher or mop the floor or whatever you're asking them to do.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I'm practicing that a lot more. My oldest son, he is a senior in high school. So, um, there's the why of family dinner, the strategy, and also a strategy I have communicated to all my kids, but especially him a lot more recently, is this is training ground. I mean, I hope I've used his entire life, like thinking about that. We are
Yeah.
training these humans to be functional humans and show up in this world,
Yeah.
but especially in the kitchen too. So yes, our strategy is family dinner, nutritious meals where we come together and connect, and also I want you to be able to learn how to be a great roommate and a great partner someday and all these things. And this is like my last year to
Yeah.
really help him. And so we've come back to that why over and over again. It's not about, you put the cheese grater in the wrong place. It's about like understanding that this is how you live with a family and this is how we function, and there are zones that hopefully make sense so we can all work together to find things easily and put things away. And I do think it helps. I don't know if it solves all teenage boy problems, but I think it does help to come back to the bigger goal.
Yeah. Well, and it's also just a great microcosm for just being respectful and kind to others. I often talk to my kids about like, okay, you know, my kids don't always do the job that I ask them to do. I'm sure I'm not alone in that. Or they'll grumble, or they'll just suddenly disappear, and you can't find them when you need them to do their job. Um, but I've started kind of talking to them about it, like, okay, I know you don't want to clear the table. This is what you've been assigned. Everybody else has different jobs. If you don't do the kitchen table, what's going to happen? And just like have them process that. Like, what will happen? Who will do it? Or if it doesn't get done, what are the consequences? Like when we go to eat our next meal, what's going to happen? We won't be able to find a place to put our dish and we'll have to stand up and eat or whatever, just kind of talking through those things that kids don't always put together because they're not thinking big picture. Or like, okay, if you aren't going to do that, who are you going to ask to do that? And who do you think it is fair to ask to do that? And if every kid asks me to do it, how long do you think I'm going to be in the kitchen? Those kind of things that they're not necessarily talking through. So it becomes about the relationships too. Like, do you want me to be a person? Do you want your mom to be a person who's just always in the kitchen and never has time to play with you or help you with your homework or talk with you about what's going on at school? Do you want me to be basically just a maid? Or do you want me to be a mother and have a relationship with you? How can we make that happen?
I love that. I need to use that more.
Because
Yeah,
we could be in the kitchen all day long every day.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I really love that.
Okay, so I would love to talk about experiments that our listeners can try at home. It could be specifically about creating any general system, or it could be in the kitchen itself. And so the first experiment that I would like to propose is just that you choose one system that is the thorn in your side, the pain point that Jen was talking about earlier. Like, what is driving you nuts, or what really needs to be resolved? And just choose that system and just think about it at that strategic level. Think about, maybe what that would look like if that pain point suddenly went away, like what a solution to that would be. You can start with that. Like, what are your struggles in that area? But then use those struggles to formulate like a specific objective. So that's my first experiment to try.
Love that. Okay, one of the ideas that I have is a more specific experiment. I think that on some level, when we leave our home and then come back to our home, sometimes there's a gap in systems. And so thinking about an experiment where how can you make your coming and going, whether it's your children's comings and goings or your own personal comings and goings, a little bit easier. Maybe you don't even have a pain point right now. So if it's you, is it your bag and your keys, everything together? Do you have a place where you keep returns or things that need to go back to another person, or errands? When you're coming home, where, like, drop zones, where do your keys go? Where does your bag go? Where do your shoes go? Likewise for your kids. Looking at an experiment of just analyzing what that coming and going looks like, and is there a place or a way that you can bring everything together so it just feels easy? And so things go directly where they go. I always say touch it once. That's something we really work on in our home, instead of putting the shoes on the floor and then moving them to by the door and then finally getting them in the basket where they go. Having a system revolve around just being able to put your bag directly on the hook or the keys directly in the bowl or wherever they go. So touching it once in your drop zones when you're coming and going.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Sometimes we don't think of that as something that needs a system, right? Like, you think of the big things, a lot of which we've talked about, like meal planning needs a system, or even bedtime needs a system. But leaving and coming back to your house also needs a system, and that's a new one for me. So I will be trying that experiment, and I appreciate that. Okay, so I guess I gave a strategic experiment last time. The next experiment I would say is to do a tactical experiment. Maybe that's just looking at, I guess the first step is just to take something that you kind of just do on a regular basis and actually write down the steps of what you do. And sometimes when you just write down the steps of what you do, the ridiculous parts become clear and the smart things become clear, and you can start to then open your mind up to different tactics. And
I absolutely love that. Laundry for me was one of those things. Like I never had a system and it was such a pain point. And I don't know if I actually wrote it down, but I love that that's the suggestion. It's like journaling your food, which I never do, but I know I've heard it's really good. You're really aware of all the things you're putting in your body. But yes, just becoming really aware of where those inefficiencies lie, and you can see it with a different perspective. It's like taking everything out of your pantry and looking at it with new eyes. I absolutely love that. And then yes, I think I probably interviewed 30 different people about how they did manage their laundry situation before I found a system that I thought would, work for my family. And it's evolved through the years. So I think those are both really great ideas. I love that.
excellent. Okay, do you have another experiment for us?
Yeah. So mine again is tactical. You're so good with the strategy.
See, that's why we need each other.
Tactical is where I shine.
Yeah, it's great.
Um, so something that's helped me, I mean, my bathroom is really small, but when setting up bathrooms for my kids and for clients, I really like um, thinking about, again, like if we're going to save time and have it be easy to get things off the counter and away, how can we corral like things together? So what does your morning routine look like? And putting those things together in a really, not your aspirational morning routine, but just your morning routine and your evening routine. And if you wear makeup, we probably don't need all the makeup in the world. Even if you know you're going to go to a big event sometime, maybe that makeup doesn't need to be front and center, depending on your space limits. But just really thinking about, again, your life right now, and streamlining your morning and evening bathroom routine, and trying to, even if decluttering means just moving the things you're not using as much to a different drawer or a lower drawer, and just try experimenting with having the things that are front and center be the things that you're using every day. It actually, I believe, makes it easier to do those things. Maybe you're trying to be really good at flossing. I think it makes it easier to implement better habits when there are fewer options available to you and they're just the highest priority items. So creating a morning and evening bathroom routine out of the system that you're making in your drawers is my experiment.
Love that. And I like the idea of starting with a small system like that. Like that's a very manageable way to think about systems when, I think we often start at the big ones and then it gets overwhelming. But if you're like, okay, my morning routine is a system, and what is the point of this system? The point of the system is to maybe start my day off with calm. Maybe that's the point of your system, and it's a self-care routine that you have. But maybe it's speed. I need to get out the door to get my kids to school, and then I can come back for a second morning routine or whatever. But again, if we have it set up aspirationally, like, yes, I want this long routine, but you're like, actually, I wake up 5 minutes before we get out the door, and that's not who I am. Starting with the objective and then being realistic about it, on that small scale will help you then level up to getting those bigger systems, more in tune with your reality.
And I'm probably speaking aspirationally myself, if I'm being honest. So,
There are so many like
all working on
things
it.
that I haven't used in years, maybe that I've moved from a house and still haven't used it in any normal routines that should not be still in my bathroom. I guess the last routine or the last experiment I will suggest is on that logistical level. And I always think of myself as the HR manager as well as the CEO and various other titles in my roles in my family. But once we have kind of the system, especially if it's starting with a small system, that communication aspect that Jen was talking about, like make sure that especially the who and the when are communicated to your children. if part of their job in your kitchen is to empty the dishwasher, if that's one child's job, they need to clearly know the expectations and who is responsible for what, but also when you expect that to be done and how, if you haven't taught them how. There's a lot of expected mind reading in family relationships, where sometimes I'll even reorganize the kitchen and I won't tell anybody that I've reorganized it. I won't give them a tour, and they'll be like, I can't find anything. Like, where is everything? So just that communication piece, making your expectations very clear. As the HR manager in your home, make sure that people know their jobs and what's expected to them, or else they'll just, sometimes it could be never ending. Like, well, I'm never going to get done because the list keeps lengthening or whatever. So just those very clear expectations of the logistics is my next experiment.
I think if it's okay for my final experiment, I'll piggyback on what you just shared a little bit, um, because and more from like a setting up, not just like delegating tasks, but setting up that initial organization system, communicating, but also really involving your other family members. I know that's not always possible, but getting input from the beginning, like, hey, I really love baking cookies with you in the kitchen. Where can we put the flour and sugar, and should we, I don't know, decant the baking soda and baking powder in a container so it's not as messy or it's easier to get into? Or getting feedback, especially I love working with kids on their own rooms together.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been a mom that like will clean their kids' rooms for them or set up, refold their clothes or set up a system and tell them like this is where your pajamas go now. It's always very collaborative. And I do think it's easier to maintain systems when they're invested, when they feel like they've been heard and their opinion matters and they've helped create the system. So that, and then also like part two of that is I do love labels. I love me some labels. And so as part of that communication, I think we probably, anyone who is a mother or a spouse knows that telling someone one time, like, oh, I moved where the cheese grater goes, it goes here now, or we're going to try out this new system, here's a tour of the kitchen. Um, it's really hard for anyone to remember. You'll remember because you set up the new system and maybe, we're thinking about zones and functionality, but telling someone one time where something goes doesn't always go well. So having an accompanying, working on creating the systems together, communicating it, but then also following up with labels wherever possible can really help keep that system.
Beautiful. Yes, I think you are very good at that. I love that. And you're good at communicating it to the rest of us on your wonderful videos on Instagram, which I seriously, like, I redid my pantry and I used that as a Bible, just all of your pantry posts.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. It's not as beautiful as most of those on there, but it's way more beautiful than it was. And I forgot to take a before and after because I always forget. But anyway, next time I'll do it.
Okay. Would love to see.
Anyway, well, this has been so great. I feel like I feel a renewed commitment myself to like revisit my systems, and especially with new stages of life, and I hope that our listeners feel the same motivation and that they can use you as inspiration to help their houses run more smoothly. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Whitney.
I'm going to throw in one more really simple experiment here that my friend Melissa just told me about. At work last week, her boss encouraged her to say a because statement before she did any task. So I thought this would be a great experiment to apply to organizing systems and areas in your home. Like, I'm organizing my refrigerator because I want my kids to have better access to fruits and vegetables. Or I'm organizing this craft closet because it'll help my kids be more creative. Hopefully this conversation with Jen has been as inspiring to you as it has been for me in the last couple of weeks, and you'll start some organizational experiments of your own. If you want to keep learning from Jen Martin, she has a fantastic Instagram feed called Reset Your Nest. And you'll find tips there for anything from preparing to the holidays to organizing spaces, all with beautiful photography. It's just fantastic. And we also did a past episode with her called How Jen Martin Organizes, and I'll link to that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Family Lab podcast. Special thanks to my assistant, Kimberly Hansen, and to my mother for playing the theme music for this podcast. She used to play this song all the time when I was growing up, and to me, it's the soundtrack of motherhood.